All right, good evening and welcome to the Hanson Economic Development Committee of October 16th, 2024. And with me is Mr. Kevin Cohen, Mr. Christopher Ernst, and of course, the lovely and talented Kim and Tony DeFreitas. So we, up first on the agenda, I'm sorry, the time is 6:10. First up on the agenda is approved meeting minutes from June 26th, 2024.
Yeah,
Yikes.
seems like yesterday.
Yeah, that's in the throwback machine. I will entertain a motion to approve those minutes.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes from June 26th.
And second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, okay, great. That brings us up to follow-up discussion, South Shore Chamber of Commerce, discuss the previous meeting with Peter Foreman Scope. Was that his name?
Yeah.
Foreman, yep.
Oh, Foreman. Foreman or Foreman Scope?
Foreman, I'm sorry.
Oh,
Yeah, there
okay,
should be a
all right.
space between Foreman and
Okay, all right,
Scope.
all right.
My
okay.
apologies.
I was like, what an interesting name. All right, Peter Foreman, regarding the update and improvement of the Economic Development Committee presence. So, what did we think? Can you guys even remember speaking to him?
Let's see.
Well, it's in the minutes, it's in the last minutes.
Yeah, so do you
So-
want to give us a little brief recap? Kind of take us on the way back machine?
So he was saying that, you know what, I actually have, give me 1 second. Bench here.
So he had said that they're one of the largest in the states, in the state, and that they have a subsidiary organization for economic development, and its primary purpose is to drive regional economic strategy. The South Shore Chamber of Commerce has a housing agenda that started about 7 years ago for new families and opportunities for older generations that may want to downsize, which sounds to me, you're more of an expert on this than I am, Kevin, but isn't it like a 40Y type of thing, like a starter home type of, Tony, was he talking about like a 40Y overlay
Yes.
zone when he was talking about the starter homes and stuff like that?
Yeah, so right now, one of the grants that we have is the Smart Growth, which is exactly that. It's for starter homes, that we're looking at what areas, if any, in town that we could create an overlay,
Excuse me.
create an overlay for that.
Oh, but did you just get awarded that grant?
No, this
Oh.
is already in the works.
Okay,
So
all right, good.
this is one where hopefully
We-
at the end of the year, it'll
Yes.
still be there.
Okay. All right, great. And then he said, blah, blah, blah. They just sort of asked us about natural assets. We told them about all the fabulous, conservation property. We even have more now. The town meeting just passed that additional piece of property, which is not insignificant in terms of that Bay State, the Bay Circuit Trail, and then even just the connectivity to Main Street and to Burridge. So then he, blah, 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 blah. I don't know, what else should we be getting out of it? We did emphasize the ecotourism.
Yeah, he said that South Shore, if I may, Madam Chair, he said South Shore can assist in grants, provide a letter which could tie into regional and state needs. They might be able to help focus on one project. They did an eco campaign, they said, a few years ago.
Yep.
So, there was some things that they could do, but there wasn't, and I think Peter was getting ready to retire.
Oh, did he retire?
I'm not sure if he's retired
Oh.
yet, but I think he,
Close.
Okay.
he was close
heading
to
to a
it.
baseball game, so it
Yeah,
was like,
it was a bit of a rush. So they, I guess what we get out of that is there something that the Economic Development Committee is considering, that we should look into? One thing that I had recently through the Mass Planner was someone that put out there regarding has any town put out for an RFP for like tourism?
Yes,
So,
yeah.
so that was.
I really dig, I don't know if you guys have had any like interaction with them or not, but Middleborough has a really good, like, I don't know what they call it, but it's not just a chamber of commerce, it's like a a group that organizes events, and they get the businesses together, and they're very active about promoting the different opportunities in town. Like, say you had I'm making this up, but like, say you had a horse farm that was doing some event, like they kind of advertise to try to bring people to those events. And and I got the business card from somebody like last year from the middle, I wish I could remember the name of it, but maybe we could connect up with them. Now, let me ask you this, Tony. In light of our lack of compliance with MBTA community, are we able to build the house around the tree? Are there other grants that we could pursue that do not require us to pursue, that aren't state grants for the things that we need? Federal, I don't know, nonprofit,
Yeah, I would think anything that's not state-based, we probably would have the ability to go after them. Obviously, as you're probably well aware, the federal grants are much more competitive.
yes.
But yes, anything that would not be state-funded, more than likely we'd be able to chase to see if we could get some funds out of it.
Okay, all right.
So it was a marketing and tourism. They had asked if any towns had done any marketing and tourism. So I'm actually going to reach out to the person that put that out there and see if they received any feedback from any of those communities and any information, and see if they'll want. And that's the good thing about the forum, is those people will share. So I can get some feedback there and see if, what was their marketing and tourism plan? Who did they hire? How much did it cost? Because maybe that's something to take a look at.
Also, do you think we could reach out to Mass Wildlife and Fisheries and see if they would be willing to do some kind of a campaign about Burridge, and like partner with us on a campaign to get more people to Burridge? They've gotten a ton of funding to do all kinds of work at Burridge. I see all kinds of new equipment there. So I think a lot of the Parks and Recreation, state Parks and Recreation stuff, Mass Wildlife and Fisheries included, really benefited from COVID because they got a lot of extra money from the state. Because they knew that more people were using those resources because they were, pent up at home and losing their minds with their kids and spouses and had to get out. So there was a lot of infrastructure money for the parks and, and all of that stuff. And I'm just wondering, like, I know Joan Pierce came to our select board meeting and she was talking about the purchase of the Hubble property, and then also the extremely controversial suggestion that we just essentially give them the light control building, which isn't going to happen, at least not with this select board. And so, but I'm wondering, would they be willing to partner or do some kind of a campaign like, hey, if you checked out Burridge and Hanson, which would drive people to come to Burridge, and who knows, they might stop at a sub shop or like to, the old Tedeschi's or Mike's House Pizza or whatever, along the way. I don't know if that's something that they do. I've seen them do little things, and they have events like typically in May, like right around election time, like May 20th. Or so, they do like the release of turtles and stuff. Like, I wonder if we could get hooked in to the events that they're having there and somehow, like, I don't know whether we would put it up on our town website, like share it, or if they would share that it's happening in Hanson, and really pump up the volume on the Hanson connectivity. But I mean, for better or worse, we're inextricably linked. They have a huge portion of property in Hanson, and like we would benefit if they would continuously mention that it's in Hanson. And I do see people from lots of people from out of town. I've met people from Brockton, from the western part of the state for certain specific rare bird sightings, Whitman, Kingston, Plymouth, all over the place.
Okay. Yeah, I can reach out to them. And we'll try and pull some information, because I feel like we have an idea and we're sort of stuck in first gear. That's for me is the frustrating part. I feel like we're kind of stuck in first gear. Like, we have a good idea, but we're just not getting traction.
Yeah,
we're not getting the traction.
Yeah.
So that's why when this came across the mass planner thing, I'm thinking, okay, yeah, marketing and tourism. Okay, what could it be? How much could it cost? The other thing I thought of was, obviously we're heading into the holiday season, so it's, but after the holidays is, the EDC has a small budget, but is it worth having that business summit or forum that had been discussed at, like Camp Kawani, and get it out there and see if we could get some local businesses to show up at Camp Kawani
I think so,
and
yeah.
have, refreshments, et cetera.
Hi. Are you looking for the Economic Development Committee?
If they,
I'm sorry?
but 3.1 the quarantine.
The conservation. Is that for the conservation? That'd be downstairs where the selectmen meet, on the very ground.
Yeah, the big meeting, yeah, yep.
So, using some of that budget to put something on at Camp Kawani and see if we can attract the businesses to come in and say, okay, look, have a sit down with us. A meet and greet, if you will. I think we talked about that in the past. And just see if they'll come in and say, okay, here's some ideas, or even here at the EDC, try and set up a meeting, pick a night that they're gonna meet, and say, send it out to the businesses. We can send it out just a flyer and say, hey, the EDC is gonna have a meeting, we'd like you to come in, give us your thoughts, we wanna, try and engage.
Did we ever refine, I love that idea, but I think we need to, different people respond to different forms of, so like, I'm wondering, could we try to invite some of the larger businesses by reaching out to them personally on the phone and inviting them? Send out that invite with our extremely limited budget, like people are gonna be eating celery with cream cheese at the event. We like have such a, like minuscule budget, but that's okay, it's not all about the food. And then, I'm wondering if I know at one point, Beth had somewhat of a database of email addresses. I'm not
Yeah,
sure how
we
super duper
have-
updated it is,
Yeah.
might need to be, cleaned up a little.
We have that. We had sent out stuff to businesses. And so we can kind of go back through that and send them a flyer and get personal contact. And we can always use, obviously, all the social media outlets that the town has available.
So I wonder.
And even for short, even a short money, put something in even the Whitman Hanson Express,
Yeah,
Tracy
might even be willing to put that in for nothing. Like as a calendar, kind of like if we do an announcement. They're pretty good that way if they can, even though, they are trying to make money. Yeah, I like that idea. When do you think the timing, so you're saying like a January, February type of situation?
Yeah, it's the middle of winter. It's the middle of winter, so people don't really have a lot to do. And if we have a decent winter, if we have not a crazy cold winter or a lot of snow, then, something we could set up, either at a Camp Kawani or here,
I feel like Camp Kawani would be more like
Attracting.
fostering more of a get out, like an out of the box, like it's not governmental, it's like we're just trying to like talk and have an open I don't know, I feel like it's a better vibe up there. What do you guys think?
I agree with that,
Yeah.
hot dogs and beer.
Okay, again, maybe the hot dogs, I don't know about the beer, we have a very limited budget. Hot dogs, no buns. Exactly, BYOB.
Bring your own bun?
Bring your own BYOBB, your buns and beer, bring your own buns and beer. So I'm wondering, maybe could you feel out with the Recreation Commission, like vis-a-vis Dory, like whether they've got any, say like a Wednesday night or Thursday night that's open? I don't think there's a ton of weddings, and certainly not in the middle of the week, but I don't know what else they might have booked there. I know Drama Kids and some other programs are up there during the week, so, yeah.
Because I think that's the thing, if we can engage people, and the biggest thing is the engagement and the fact that, what was, I think the biggest sales point for Hanson is open space.
I
mean, it really-
hands down,
I mean, it really is the seed that could probably,
hands down.
you
Show me another town that's got forage, got these cute little ponds, got Camp Kawani, Smitty's Bog, even the town forest is a little gem, which nobody ever I go there, a couple times a week, I love it. Super quiet, I never run into anybody, of course, now I'm saying it out loud, but, but there's several little like Plymouth County Hospital in the back there. We've got a lot of really great walks with Nowazowski, the Elm Street side of Burridge that's in Hanson. We've got a lot of great places. And maybe that's something, I wonder if we should talk to, like Frank and TJ and Dave, do we have an opportunity to do a better job about advertising what we have in Hanson for conservation properties? And I'm not suggesting that they haven't published it, but they've done it in a concept, like with the conservation hat on, not necessarily an economic development hat on, like a, more of a sales pitch. They've done it more like boots and straps. Here's the basic info. Here's how you access the trail, blah, blah, blah. All, which is amazing and we can leverage, but I'm just wondering, is there some way for us to package that?
When we research in the ecotourism about the state has like a trails map. Did they have like a trails map or something like that effect with different communities?
Yeah.
That we actually found information like online. So if you're a person who likes to go hiking,
Yeah.
here's a list of places where you can go hiking.
Are we on there?
And I'm not sure if we were on there. It was a while ago, so we'd have to go back, we'd have to circle back
State
around.
Department of Tourism and see whether they've got anything they could offer to us?
Yeah, definitely.
I don't know how you even hook up with them. I'm not even sure, like, if it's as simple as reaching out, or if we have to pay them to do something. I wouldn't think so, since they're trying to make Massachusetts a more attractive place for people to visit.
Yeah, I mean, there must be, I'm sure there's at least an email or a phone number or someone we can contact.
The other thing would be like Wildlands Trust or
Yes.
just either, just to talk
Yes.
to, like Karen Gray, who runs Wildlands Trust, she would probably be a resource to at least tell us, how do we get these trails on the map?
Yeah, and how do we, because we basically want essentially the same audience that they've got,
Yeah.
do you have any suggestions? And we're not competing, because it's not like we're looking for
I
donations from
can,
people.
I can talk to them. Karen was a longtime client of mine. I know
Oh,
her
really?
very well.
Okay, cool,
So I can get in touch with them.
okay, that
So
would
if she
be,
has any ideas. or she
Yeah,
would be
that would be
to a
great.
meeting To talk.
I mean, yeah, she may, I'm sure that, because they're having to take it up even higher notch than we are, because they're not self-sustaining, like, they have to solicit,
Exactly.
So,
But part of their mission is they have their own properties, but they also are really helping anyone who's trying
Yes.
to steward properties and trails and things like that.
they have the conservation deed restrictions on some of our
Exactly,
properties, yeah.
exactly. So
yeah.
I think they would be willing to help and maybe put us in the right.
That's a great idea, I love it. What do you think, Kev?
Yeah, I think that would be great. I would love to see a printout of the trails. I mean, we have all these maps behind us, but we don't have one with all the trails.
Yeah, I mean,
But, I mean-
they might have something in conservation with the trails, because I know Mr. Clemens and Mr. Mansfield have done a lot of work, obviously, on the trails. So they probably have quite a bit of information.
Yeah,
I mean,
and then.
I don't know if it's, how much they've thrown out there in the ether. or-
But they've done a little bit, like, so I wonder if, I also wonder, should we be talking like Green Hanson and Conservation? They've done some guided walks on some of our properties, but it's been mostly focused at town people, which is totally fine, because of course we want people in town to know what's available to them. But if we're looking at economic development, we gotta try to convince other people, hey, Hanson's got some cool trails that you could come to. And Burridge is such a, everybody that's been there is like, oh my God, is this really in the middle of this little town? I think it's over 1,600 acres. I don't want to exaggerate, but I'm
Yeah,
pretty sure it's close to that.
huge, yeah.
Of course, not all of it's in Hanson, but the best part is. So
What do you love the most about Burridge?
it is different literally every day you go out there, like the flora, the fauna, depending upon the weather. Like some of the most beautiful things I've seen are crazy things that you wouldn't even think about, like when the orb spiders start spinning their webs, and if you get out there early in the morning and the dew is on them, it's like a crazy sculptural, like you can't even imagine what it looks like, and you're like, wow, these guys are prolific, like they did this all overnight.
Maybe spiders are not one you want to sell.
Well, yeah.
We go out there all the time and
yeah,
I love going in the different entrances. 'Cause
Yes.
It's a completely different experience if you go
I
in
agree.
on Elm Street
Yep.
than if you go in by Lake Control. It's
Even
like, you
the
don't even know
paths
it's
are
the same property because
yes.
it's so vastly different.
Even by path, it's different.
Yeah.
Like if you go up, like the first path versus the second path versus the third, there's one where you'll see great blue herons more frequently, one where I see a ton of frogs every day, one where I know the turtles kind of hang out. Like there's different, and even like temperature wise, sometimes in the summer summertime, I'll be like, oh my God, I'm dying, it's so hot. And then I go down another path and it's like, oh my God, I'm in a wind tunnel, I have to put on a jacket. Like, you have to bring layers because it's like, to Chris's points, it's like, depending upon the entrance and the path, and it just is a whole different thing. Like, I have to admit, I do like the Elm Street Halifax entrance, so don't like hurt me for saying that.
That's where I go in.
But I dig that entrance. But I occasionally really liked it, the Elm Street Hanson entrance is a whole different vibe. It's more like fields and more closed in versus the one, off
On the
Fox
Halifax
Ave. It's
side.
super open, it's more cranberry bogs. Like, it's just like, no matter what day I go there, even like today, I walked there, and I was out there and I'm like, well, there's really not many birds and there's really not too many turtles because it's just a weird time of the year. A couple turtles, but nothing major, like no major bird. But the foliage, it's like, no matter when you go there, there's always something amazing. So I'm sure you regret asking me that question.
No, I
but-
don't.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because you always have good things to say about it, and I wanted you to
What,
articulate.
I mean, what do you like?
Your
Doesn't it
love
fill
for-
your
I mean,
soul?
I go there.
Yeah.
I mean, I walk every morning, and I haven't been going there the last month just because I go out at 5:30. It's just too dark to
Yeah,
be out there by
yeah.
yourself. But it's amazing. In the last month, I've showed 2 friends that have lived in Hanson their entire life the Burge. They've never been in there.
Yep.
And they're like, how could I have never been here? This place is unbelievable.
I had a friend who lived here 70 years, grew up here, and had never been to Burridge, and now she's like a regular walker there.
Yeah.
Loves it. Says, oh my God, like she can't get over it. So, yeah, that's why I'm saying, like, I really think I don't want to overstate it, but it's crazy to me what a gem it is. I do feel super conflicted about sharing it with the world. I have to be honest with you. Because then it will become more crowded,
Go
but
see a sunrise there. It's unbelievable.
sunrise, sunset, people think I'm like photoshopping.
I have pictures all on my
pictures.
phone.
Yeah.
I take pictures all the
Yes.
time. I mean, you would never
Yeah.
know you're in Hanson
No.
when you look at these pictures. It's just
Yeah.
unbelievable.
People are always like, is the water really that blue? It's like, do you really think I've got time to Photoshop the water? Like, come on, I've got a life,
It is a peaceful
yeah.
place.
I'm
So-
sensing a segment on Whitman Hanson Cable Access.
The love of the Burge.
Explore the Burridge with Laura Kevin.
And I took this picture.
We should do that.
Please, if you were friends with me on Facebook, you'd know.
I see it all the time.
Yeah. We should have T-shirts, like,
Just be careful for the hunters, that's all.
yeah, it is.
Because I've had a
hunting season.
couple times where I've been out there and,
Well,
Are you
it's
wearing
not-
your blaze orange?
Yeah,
'Cause
this is
you
the
gotta
time-
Follow the rules
this is
first.
the
You
time
gotta
of the
wear
year to wear your blaze
orange.
orange.
careful.
Yeah, I know I look like a, little Smurf, but I wear I have a blaze orange hat. It looks ridiculous. It's not fashionable at all, but I won't get shot. My dog has a little blaze orange vest I put on
It
her.
was key when we were surveying
Yeah.
in the fall. You always had to get your orange vest on so you
Yeah.
don't get, mistaken for
I
a,
think duck hunting just started. David George told me it did. And I believe maybe even deer too.
yeah, deer
Bows.
Yeah.
season starts.
Yeah.
You can,
Yeah, I saw a guy with a bunch of
Shotguns
bows the
and
other day.
to
Yeah,
December, but-
Just a little footnote on that.
Yeah.
The property on Hawks Ave, the grant that we received for that property was $100,000. And in that grant, it clearly states in the contract that if the town sells that property, that money has to be repaid to the
Yes.
state.
yes.
So, Joan Pierce, when she said, it's like, well, your department would at least have to pay us $100,000, or you're going to have to go to that other state agency, which was Mass Development, I believe, and have them remove that from the contract. So you fight it amongst yourselves and let us know.
Yeah, and I think also we spent money on an engineering study, which granted, can be reused in a way, lift and shift type of thing. But I think in a lot of people's minds, like, we're out that money, and then would have to repay this money. So I think, although it was gifted to us, we also spent money on attorney fees and all kinds of other things. So it's very naive to think we're just gonna turn
Yeah.
a piece of property that we know has value. Like,
Right.
we wanna be good partners with them, right? We love having Burge there. We love the fact that,
Absolutely.
that they're even willing to do anything with it, but.
But we
to
can't
th-
get for zero and all of
No,
a sudden over
that's just, I mean,
$100,000.
the
It
look
doesn't
on
make
everybody's
sense.
face when she didn't come right out and say it, but I was like, okay, if I'm reading between the lines, it sounds like and I'm like, Joan, I just have to be honest, that's not gonna happen.
Yeah.
And,
And like I said,
Yeah.
legally, you can't,
no,
you know?
Yeah,
So-
that's a good point. I forgot about that when we were
Because
talking.
legally you can't,
Yeah.
you know, so.
Okay, so do you feel comfortable with like next steps on the South Shore? Okay, great. Hanson Day. So what did you guys think?
I thought it went really well. I think the Hanson Business Network helped quite a bit with that as
Yeah,
well.
yeah,
There was a good showing of both booths. There was a great showing of people showing up to be there and take part in the day. All around seemed pretty successful.
we had more businesses this year than we
yeah,
did last
yeah.
year.
I think there was an event. I forget what it was called. The event a week before kind of
The
spurred a little
historical
extra.
craft fair,
So I
yeah,
think that actually spurred a little extra. Some of the same people were there.
yeah.
Both weeks. But ultimately, I mean, I kind of think of it as the end of the summer event, even though it creeped into end of September, middle of September this year. But
To me, that location is the way to go.
You thought that was a better location?
Because I talking to a few
Yes.
people, they just drove by, I was like, hey, what's going on? And they pulled in to see
Yeah.
it, as opposed to tucking it back.
So you thought it was better than the town hall location?
I think the parking situation is
Yeah,
better.
I know, I know. I love the,
Because you can park at the baseball.
I like the
fields and-
flow, like the floor plan better up at town hall, but the parking is more of a problem. Yeah, you're right, you're right.
But even having it on town hall green's great. Obviously,
Yeah.
we had no control over the weather last year, but being tucked away at the middle school.
We had
was tough.
like the
That
perfect
was a
day,
perfect day.
perfect day.
Perfect.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
It was great. The feedback from everyone was excellent.
And what did you think about not having a DJ? I don't really think it was missed.
I actually didn't even think of it until you just mentioned it.
Well,
I mean,
I can only prevail upon friends so many times to
Yeah.
be DJs at events. And I thought to myself, do we really need constant noise 24 hours a day? Can't people just sort of chill and just do their thing? And I didn't really think people noticed. I will say, that said, it was awkward when we were having the performances, trying to get everybody, like when we had the karate performance, and then, can we please talk about that bomb sniffing dog? That was awesome.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
When we had those guys there trying to, it was like literally like herding cats, like, oh, we're gonna have the performance, and I'd get people over there, but they hadn't started yet, and then I'd come back and those same people would be drifting off, I'm like, but we're doing it right now. So we do need like maybe a mic or something,
Yeah.
like eventually I got the MBTA guy who had the bomb sniffing dog, and note to the file, I had never really thought about bombs on the MBTA until the guy came, but anyway, now I'm like having high anxiety about it, but he actually used his vehicle
Oh, yes, yeah.
to announce it, and that worked. But the fire truck guys tried to help, but their announcement stuff just wasn't powerful enough. Also, thank you for thank both of you guys for everything that you did, but thank you for picking up the bouncy
Yeah.
and into country rentals, because they were huge
Yeah.
help. They even threw in a generator.
Yes, yeah.
So, is there something we could have done to make that easier, or was that okay?
It was totally
Okay.
fine.
All right. Anything else?
I know the Lions were very happy. They sold out of all their sausages. They were a big hit. Yeah, Bob Bethany's karate, saw that performance. Like you said, the bomb
Yeah.
sniffing dog. I spoke with that guy for a while. Nice guy. He had
Really? He
had a lot
said,
to say,
anytime you
yeah.
guys need us. He's
Oh,
like,
yeah.
anytime, just reach out. You've got my email.
Yep.
He's like, I loved this. I love doing this. I live in town. He was super
He
jazzy.
had all his
Yeah.
like the SWAT type gear that kids could put on. That was pretty neat.
And maybe, if I may interject, is these businesses that have attended the Hanson Day,
So,
if you have them at this summit, and maybe they could say, hey, we've done this, and this is what we've received, or this is the feedback we've got, it's been great, maybe we can get more businesses involved.
I've got a Hanson Business Network meeting tomorrow night. I will mention it. It's at Amy's Healing Arts. What we're doing is, we've been rotating where we have it. We have it like different businesses will say, oh, I'll host it at mine. So then we get to check out the business and they sort of tell us their story and like what they're planning for the future, how they got to where they are. It's super interesting. So we're kind of learning a lot about each other. So Amy's Healing Arts up on Main Street is hosting tomorrow night. And I'll just mention like, hey, what would be the appetite if we had like a business summit, just to pick your brain about what we could do to support businesses, what we could, is there red tape we need to try to cut through? Is there, grants that you would like us to pursue? Is there, I don't know, traffic studies or, zoning or whatever it is? I don't know, fill in the blanks, Is there something you want us to do?
I've seen an increase through zoning for businesses in town, people locating in town or wanting to open a business in town. So I've seen an increase, at least probably like 3 or 4 of them. What'd you say, Kim? About 3 or 4, because the planning board gets copies of the applications that the
Okay,
zoning, from
yeah.
the zoning board.
Yeah.
And there's been quite a few interest. Wouldn't you say, Kev?
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely.
Yeah.
So,
Well, that's good news.
yeah, and I've tried to direct folks to if I'm somehow get involved, I direct them, hey, listen, EDC, we have, and more than once I've printed out the business manual.
I was gonna ask, are you
And-
using the business
Yeah,
manual? Okay.
printed out the business manual, I've given it to them, or I've emailed it to them, or I told them it's up on our webpage. And, I said it has everything you need, who you need to talk to, and so we've tried to make it, I think on this floor, we've tried, and when there's businesses come in, we've tried to organize, if you will, the land use board offices and sit down with folks to discuss, what they want to do,
I love that. I wish we could almost formalize it, because what I hate to like think of, and I'm not saying it happens all the time, but I hate people to feel like they're walking into this maze of regulations and, impediments for them getting their business, because we want businesses here. So like, I want to try to make it as easy as it possibly can. I'm not saying, violate bylaws or anything like that, but just like, how do we help, like, how do we give people little decoder rings of like, here's what you need? And that guide is one thing, but then, depending upon people's level of understanding of town government, the guide may not be as helpful as somebody just sitting down and going, look, your first step is you gotta go to conservation, then you gotta do this, and even like, somebody was telling me, obviously, we don't have the resources in town to do this, but I'm wondering if there's a way we could kind of artificially create this. But there are towns that have like business liaison, like you go to the town and they're like, you want to open up a business? We're going to give you white glove treatment and walk you A through Z through everything you need to do to open a business, because that's how much we want you to open up here. And I don't know, obviously you guys have got day jobs, everybody in the land use, groups have got day jobs. So I don't know how we could do that, like, I don't know. If, I'm not sure if that's something like, I don't know, like, if we had a 5-member committee, I'd say, like, we could volunteer, like, to be like a point person for people to reach out and like, oh, hey, I'll make the call to you to, or I'll go in with you to conservate, whatever it is, because it's not like we're gonna have 30 businesses all at the same time. It's not to that level. But I think we need to build out our numbers. I do have one woman that I think she'll be good. She used to own her own business in Hingham. She's super smart. She was a professor of economics. And I have cast the die. We will see. I'm gonna follow up.
I've had quite a few people come to the planning department because they see town planner, so they've come to my office. And also they go to zoning, because if they go downstairs to get a business certificate or something, that's not the town clerk's office, and they head over to zoning. But we've tried to work closely with myself, zoning, all the departments really. But we'll say the biggest focus tends to be like zoning, planning, building.
Yes, yeah.
And then, because most of the times it's already existing buildings that people are moving into versus something that's brand new.
Yeah.
But I've had more than one person call me about, they want to start a business or open up a business or put up a new building, and so I, tell them what they need to do and direct them to also the zoning department, building, and we've had a few people come in where myself, Carrie, and Virginia have sat down with the folks and explained everything they need to do, what the process is, how to go about it. So I think we have a pretty good communication going on.
That's good, that's
with
awesome. Yeah.
with folks, and we try and give them answers, and we, of course, we tell them, look, we're not the boards.
Yeah.
We can only tell you this is what you need to do. The boards are the boards.
Right.
But if you at least present something, if you present a good project and you give them all the information, it makes it that much easier. The more informed information you provide to the board makes that board more informed, which makes it easier for your project to maybe get through.
Yeah.
Like, I won't disclose it, but we have an existing business that wants to expand, a pretty, what I would call a significant expansion. And I think it would be good for the town.
And I've heard that there's some interest in a business locating in Shaw's Plaza, pretty big one.
That one I haven't heard,
Yeah,
but
Mr. Amato was just telling me there's Board of Health component to it, so.
Yeah.
So that's exciting, because I hate to see I hate to see any vacant building.
Yeah.
Along any of the commercial. We're pretty lucky, we don't have a ton of that, but we do have a few little pockets.
And that plaza, last year, they spent quite a bit of money to replace the septic system.
That's what he told me, I thought he said several $million.
It's a
Yeah.
huge system. If you actually drive down County Road on your right, you'll see there's a big area that was cleared and now it's all green with a
Yep.
split rail fence.
Yeah.
That's all leaching area.
I didn't know that was for the Shaw's Plaza.
Yeah.
I didn't put two and two together. I somehow was like, oh, I wonder if that's for the Ritter property. Seemed weird. I couldn't make it reconcile in my mind, but that makes sense now. Yeah.
So,
All right, interesting. Okay, so, we'll set a date for next year, probably the third weekend in September. But I want to coordinate so we don't have competing events. I'll have to check with Jim Hickey and see when he's planning on doing a historical one. And I didn't even contemplated, I don't know what you guys think about this, like, should we expand it to even more than to this? Like, I was wondering, some towns do like a town-wide yard sale and then a Hanson Day and and then do we invite the Hanson Historical Society to have an event with us? Because we're not selling anything, we're not trying to make money, and we're just trying to celebrate Hanson. And like, if we had the Hanson Historical Society, there's plenty of room between McQuon and Indian Head for everybody to have like this massive event. Like, I don't know, town yard wise, yard sale, historical craft event, Hanson Day celebrating it. I don't know.
Yeah.
You can tell me if you think I'm crazy and talking about the ledge.
I was just trying to think of this town that I went to, and they had what was called a cow plot. Yeah, have you ever heard of this before?
Yes,
Where they had a
yes.
whole grid, and
Yeah.
and they bring in the cow, and you win if it plops on you. You know what I mean? And
I got you.
The amount of money that the town, I forget what town it was, the amount of money that they make, it would pay for a lot of things, you know.
Yeah.
I mean, that might be their main event of the year. Just some unique event like that. I mean, I've also heard of like, golf courses sometimes do like a helicopter drop of all the balls. Same
Yeah.
kind of idea.
Yeah.
If whoever gets it in the hole or closest to the hole wins that.
So I don't know, I mean, I
Like a
was,
competition, gambling.
the
yeah,
town,
like, I'm like,
the town of Westport
Yeah.
has the town of Westport in the summer, usually towards the end of the summer, Westport Fair.
Oh,
And it's all
okay.
pretty much agricultural based fair. It's a
Mhm.
4-H pretty much based fair. It's not like you go in there and it's rides and this and that. It's all agricultural based. Animals and cows and
Yeah.
well, and years ago, there used to be a carnival here. Years ago, when my kids were really little, I remember there being a carnival. I think it was run by Kiwanis or somebody, and I think it was on the town hall property. And then it just disappeared. So I guess what I'm trying to say is, like, I always like to compare to other surrounding towns. Like, are they doing more than we are? Like, I get super competitive about weird things. So I kind of was talking to the people that do Pembroke, and I was thinking about what Whitman does and Hanover. Hanover's off the hook. Their Hanover Day, I mean, but a lot of them use town money to run the event. And we've always done this bootstrap, like no money at all. Like, it's so when the chair of the Pembroke Select Board reached out to me, she was like, well, where do you guys get your money? I'm like, what do you mean? We don't have money. I said, this is all free. People volunteer. It's volunteers that are running it. It's at the school, we don't pay anything for that. I'm like, we have no money out of pocket. And she's like, you're kidding me, because we're gonna spend like, I think she said $5,000. And she said, and they're coming to us for more money. I'm like, we don't do that. And so, and I'm not suggesting we want to do that, but I'm just wondering, like, is there an opportunity to add a carnival component? Is there an opportunity to do some, I don't know, like a parade, or or do we want to keep it simple like it is, which really, honestly, it's not heavy, it's not heavy lifting. I just keep track of people that respond. This year, as you guys know, like last year, and every year before that, I've had like this extremely, like detailed floor plan. And this year, I really don't know what got into me, but we were in a new location. And I went to go put people in locations. And at a certain point, I went, where do you want to be?
Yeah.
And people were like, well, that's fine. I'm like, great, nobody's over there. And then the next person came, and I'd be like, well, how about like a little over to the left? Like, I had a whole floor plan,
Yeah.
but I didn't go with it. I just sort of was like, where do people feel comfortable? People were thrilled.
Yeah.
It totally worked out. Everybody had plenty of room. There was no issue. I did feel bad about Frank Melissi. He ended up being like in a weird location, but he had picked it himself.
I was
Yeah, yeah. I felt like he was off to the side, but he was okay with
And a
it.
few people ended up setting up theirs.
Yeah. But besides, so everybody seemed fine with the location. So I think the lesson I learned was just chill out a little. You can't really control every little detail, and it will all just work out. And it was perfectly fine. And now we know where the electricity is, because this was the first year, so we weren't really sure, was there electricity? Where was it? My husband and I had gone around the night before, but we didn't want to get arrested by the police, because, it was like dark, and we're going around looking for outlets on the outside of the school, and he's like, they've got security cameras, like, this is gonna look super weird that we're going around. So, we ended up figuring out there's one at least on that portico.
Yeah.
And then, there probably are other ones, but that one we were able to use, so.
The one thing,
So lessons learned, but anyway, we don't have to answer tonight about whether we want to take it to another level or make it something different.
Maybe we could-
you do have extra room now across the street.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we do,
You have, you
at least for now.
at
Yeah.
least for now, you
Yeah.
basically have an event field
Yeah,
with parking.
Well, if we want to add like, 50/50 raffle or small concessions.
Touch a truck.
Something like that, you know what I mean? Something
Yeah.
to generate a little income
Yeah.
for the
As-
development committee.
I mean, it might be cliche, but if you had Hanson Day, if you could provide me Hanson Day and the car show you just had,
I know, I thought about that. I thought about like the car show or Touch a Truck, which the Hanson Holiday group is doing this Saturday. I'm totally fine with Hanson Day being like a format for nonprofits to raise money for themselves. We're not trying to raise money for the town. We can't, because the town's not able to do fundraising like that. But I, like, if like Lions or Kiwanis or Rotary or whoever wants to come, and as long as they're like a nonprofit, they want to come and make money, I don't know, the football guys or what, or all of them, I don't really care, And this year we had let people sell, but not a ton of people sold, but I'll tell you, the ones that did said they did very well. They said they did very well. Okay,
you could probably keep it basic, but yet still, I mean, if you took like all the things that you're talking about, and then you had a car show, and then you had, let's say, a couple of food trucks.
Yeah.
In the McQuon site, you have parking.
Yeah.
And you have a big field. And there's playground for kids.
yeah,
So, and it's a side street, so you're not having to deal with that 58 traffic.
yeah, the parking worked out pretty good, actually.
Yeah, the
I
parking
thought it
was
was
good,
good, so, okay, well, I think we'll beat that, that horse to death. All right, and moving along, well, we already discussed ecotourism.
Yep.
So, informational discussion on creation of farmers market in Hanson. Kim, I know you did like a little thing, and I don't think we didn't really drill down on the,
No.
On which one, the
the
farmer's
farmers
market?
market, like, yeah, you had done a little.
Yeah, I did the research. It wasn't hard. No big deal. It just involved, if you want to do it right and you want to do it well and be successful, it just seems like you need to be very orderly, have someone that's responsible that oversees it. So you're gonna have to pay for someone who sees it. And they would be the one that would be responsible for the setup, the breakdown, the weekly payments from the vendors that are doing it. Filling in if people are canceling and they have other, so it's just, there needs to be an organized plan
Yeah.
for it to work well. So, I mean, I don't know if you're gonna find anyone that's going to be willing to volunteer their time to do that.
No,
But
probably
it's,
not. Yeah.
it's really something that pays someone, you're gonna get the work that you need done.
Is that how, do we know how Pembroke does it?
I don't.
Do you mind calling over there to find out, like, how do they, because theirs seems a little more loose, a little bit, like, they do it every Saturday. It's over by the new community center. Some, it's crafters and farmers, like, it's like a combo kind of thing. The pretentious pickle is always there, which I love. If you haven't been there, you gotta get some pretentious pickle in your life. She's in Pembroke, and, but it doesn't seem, I'm never sure who's gonna be there, and maybe there's somebody that's coordinating it, but I don't know who it is. So do you mind just asking? Because that might be a good model for us to use. Everybody has to bring their own tents. They have to stay set up. I think it's until 2 o'clock, 2 or 3. I think it opens at like 10.
Mhm.
It's not super early. They usually have like somebody playing music. I don't know if they pay or if that's somebody who volunteers. They've usually got like a food trucky type of thing, like some kind of food. It might not be a food truck, it might just be like a cart, but like some kind of food that you could buy. So it seems low key.
Mhm.
Like I said, Green Hanson did this years ago, and they just had so many people cancel out that like there'd be some Saturdays that there'd be
Well, that's the other
virtually
thing is
nobody.
they're still responsible, like,
They didn't have people pay. It was just a like a very casual, like, oh, all right, these 10 vendors are saying they're gonna come
Yeah.
every Saturday, and people would just bail, and there'd be one poor little pathetic person,
Yeah.
peddling their tomatoes or something. After a while, they were like, why are we doing this? Like, what's the point,
right,
I'll throw this out at the Hanson Business Network tomorrow night too. And because a lot of those guys like, make soaps, or they have like things that they're making that they're selling.
A lot of crochet.
Yeah, like that, like the hooked and jarred, Stephen Smith's wife does that.
Organic is such a big thing right now. I mean, people are going to Trader Joe's and paying a lot of money for organic food, where
Yeah,
farmer's market, you can get the same organic food for a lot less.
yeah,
I went to a beer testing, so it was a plant show. It was a plant show at a brewery in Plymouth a few weeks back. And it was basically a craft fair for plants.
really.
And I was blown away because this is something my daughter's totally into right now, plants.
Like, what did they, so
And
besides
so-
plants, what else did they?
Well, it was really heavy on the plants. Or if there was a craft, it pertained to plants somehow.
Like a
Whether-
macrame hanger,
Yes.
or like pottery, or?
Exactly.
Okay, all right.
Yep, yep, or the things you put in the water to water them.
Yep,
But I was amazed. I don't even know how they put that together, but the amount of people that were there, and these were all, the majority of the people that were there were mom and pops.
and were
Maybe-
people throwing down?
Oh my God, I threw down. I brought
Yeah.
home things I didn't need, but
Yeah.
but yeah, it was a really neat event. I thought it was really, really cool. Something, of course, you have to do like early fall.
Yeah.
Because now
Yeah.
it's too cold for plants to be outside or whatever. But I thought I had a great time.
That's
doing
so
that.
creative. I've never even heard of such a thing.
Mhm, mhm.
Yeah.
So it was like different than a craft show
Yes.
or a vendor show that are the same people you see all the time. No disrespect, because we all need to make our money somehow.
Yeah.
But it was just a little different. And if you chose, you could have taste beer too.
That's a win-win.
It was a win-win.
Because the money flows when the booze flows.
Exactly.
It's a truism,
Mm-hmm.
for any type of fundraising.
Absolutely.
All right, well, we have been around the bend and back again. Town planner updates, Mr. DeVries.
Okay, so I believe I mentioned this to the EDC the last time, but you have a budget of $1,500 that was appropriated. Going over some of the grants that we've been working through, master plan. That grant has now closed. We've completed the master plan that's been approved, so we have a new 10-year master plan. Our housing production plan is almost complete. I'm actually meeting with our consultant this Friday. She's written most of it. We've had some draft chapters which have been presented before the planning board. 0 West Washington Street. I was going to be going before the select board last evening, but there was a change of agenda. So I'll be going before the select board to show what's the progress. And what's happened is through the grant, the Mass Development is working with a company called VHB. They've been out there, they've established a wetland line. And of course, there's more wetland than was expected, but the site is still viable for at least a single building.
Okay.
They've come up with some sketches, which I'll be presenting to the select board. You're talking about a building that's about 25,000 square feet.
That's not insignificant.
No, with parking and drainage, et cetera. And if we were to look at incorporating the existing water department site for some reason, let's say water department decided that they want to move to a different location or whatever, that site could possibly accommodate a second building of similar or greater size.
Wow.
So that property can yield something significant, and which once we get all the sketches, then I think the town could probably look at saying, okay, let's get maybe some permits in place,
So
and then.
let me ask you this, is water there for a specific, like, they're not there because it's right near a well site or anything, right?
Well, the well site is adjacent to the industrial park.
But it's at the other end, right?
Right.
Yeah.
I'm not from here, but the history I've been told is that building became available and they moved into it or bought it or something like that.
Okay, all right.
So if they were to decide to, let's say, expand or move elsewhere, and that site became available, you have a potential for a secondary building there. But if we just examine 0 West Washington, you're talking about 25,000 square foot building, nothing to sneeze at, and especially if you condo it out and put a couple of businesses in there.
Yeah,
So as we get this moving, we could maybe get this towards a property that can be disposed of. I mean, obviously, the money that we spent on the grant, we have to pay that back.
yep.
But obviously, we would look for money that and much more, which may help us in reducing that deficit that we know is coming next year.
Yeah, and so, I know this is a discussion for a different day, but this, of course, makes me think, like, I know what the needs of fire are, and that they're expressing, like, that long-term, that location isn't gonna be sufficient, and that building out, as they originally had hoped, probably isn't gonna work because of the proximity of the wetlands. Although I've been hearing mixed messages on that, but anyway. And then we know highway is way overdue for getting into a new building. And then I'm thinking, and if we had the water, are we looking at something that could potentially be like a complex? I don't know where we would locate that, because that, of course, is the big question. But are we looking at something where if we were able to get a hold of that water piece of property, sell the 0 Washington, combine those funds, are we now looking at some funding to do something where we're gonna be able to get those departments in the type of shape and the place, at least some money towards what they need? Obviously, it's not everything.
Well, I had some conversations with the fire chief, and I know that they've been kicking around different things. And one of the last times that I had a conversation with them was they're looking at staying where they are and adding onto the building, and then adding a second story in the front and creating living space for the firefighters, because obviously that site is central. And as some folks may think, well, they don't have to be, but realistically, yeah, being centrally located is important.
It's rather critical for fire.
And, and same thing comes with highway.
Yes,
Water department, they can kind of be where they are.
yeah,
It's not necessarily as critical.
yeah,
If you had more town-owned property, you could look at something similar to Mansfield. So on Route 106 in the town of Mansfield, they have their It's water, highway, and safety building all on the same site.
Yeah.
Three separate buildings, but all on the same site, you know? Unfortunately, fortunately for them, they had a site that could accommodate that. And, it's in a good spot, it's in a good location. So as far as Hanson's concerned, could you do something similar to that? Let's say we went down the road of, okay, McQuan site becomes an athletic complex, and then where highway is, there's enough there to maybe create a complex to put all those
Yes.
together.
Yeah,
It's not beyond the realm of possibility.
okay.
You know what I mean? I've always said it, when you say to an engineer, you can't do that, it's like challenge accepted, and good engineering, you can make a lot of things happen, if not almost anything happen.
And it would be a logical spot.
Yeah.
It would be logical.
Yeah.
And I think that if the McQuan Field were made into like a sport complex, of course, there are gonna be some people who have certain feelings about, historically, the Boccieri and, the naming and da-da-da-da. But I think, I think everybody recognizes things change. We can't stay the same forever, and we're growing, and I think as long as there was some duplication or homage to, the
Oh,
Boccieri.
absolutely, and that's what when I came up with the proposal, it's not about, destroying the thoughts or what the history of the site is. It's just moving it. You can keep the same name, and you can.
Yeah.
And I mean, I don't know the gentleman that created that field or put the money in that field, but if someone knows him, was he a practical man, and would he say, yeah, it's a great idea because it's for the better of the town?
Yeah.
I mean, clearly, I think he did what he did was to improve the town and for the better of the town. And that's the whole idea here, is to try and make things better for the town and the residents.
Yeah.
So it's just, you don't have to change the name, you just keep the name, and you're just moving a different location, and that site just becomes more
I
centralized.
haven't heard people get too worked up about it, but, if it were to happen, maybe that reality of it might make certain people that are, feeling nostalgic, would maybe feel a certain way. I don't know, Chris, what's your sense on that?
There's been some social media stuff about it, because when you made the presentation about the athletic complex, just because I'm highly involved in Little League,
Yeah.
we got a little bit of reverb on our social media and everything.
Do you think-
It's minimal, I mean.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
I don't,
Yeah.
we can call it the field, Terry Field over there.
That's what
You know
I
what I
was
mean?
saying. We would.
Yeah, it's not about snuffing out the
Yeah,
past.
exactly.
It's
Yeah.
just about relocating it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Making it better for the kids.
Right,
Yeah.
yeah, exactly,
That's what we-
it's about making it better, it's
Yeah.
brand new fields, it's more room, it's a safer location.
Yeah.
Now if you look at McQuan and say this, what about creating a complex there for, let's say, fire, highway, water, if they decide to join in. The tough part is you're right near the school.
Yeah.
And for the fire department, it's a side street. It's better to be right on the main drag so that you can go
Yeah.
versus a side street. So there's a lot of things that's been kicked around.
Okay. All right, well, this was a good meeting, I think.
Yeah.
So, November date,
If I may, Madam Chair.
yes,
So I'll just quickly, the park, High Street Park.
yes.
That'll be coming before the planning board on the 28th of October.
Oh, okay.
Also, the pedestrian improvements for Main Street, which is under a grant, that's going before the planning board on the 28th of October. We'll be having public meetings for both those projects. And obviously, any of the members of the EDC or the select board are welcome to come in. Also, we'll be going before as far as economic development, I guess what might be relevant here is the Cannabis Control Commission is promulgating new regulations. We'll be before the select board on the 29th, the chair of the planning board and myself, to discuss that with the select board. And then Phillip Street, I saw that there was some conversations at the town meeting. I think there was maybe some information that got out there that was incorrect. The whole idea of the Phillip Street is it's a grant from Mass Housing to Hanson and the Housing Authority. Mass Housing has hired a consultant, and the idea is for us as a town to find out that site what is the resource area,
Yes,
where is
yeah.
it, what's wet, what's
can be
up,
done.
and what can be done.
Yeah.
And so that's what so the whole contract was for $9,550. Hanson had to put in a 10% match, which was the $955, and that's what it was for.
We ended up parsing through that after a lot of misinformation. And I think there were a few people intent on social media and making this somehow conflating it with the MBTA community, although
Yeah, it has
was
nothing,
literally nothing to do with it.
nothing at all.
And I had talked to one of the other selectmen the day before the meeting, and I was like, what are people talking about? We're absolutely not talking about MBTA community again. Planning has refused to take it up, they couldn't even get a vote. The select board isn't even talking about it, like, the people have voted, and we're not gonna be taking it back up again. So I don't know what people are I mean, obviously, if the state comes back, that's a different situation, but as of this moment, we're not. And so I'm like, I have no idea why people think that we're gonna try to talk about the MBTA community. Never in a million years did I connect that this $955 community preservation article
Right.
would have been conflated in people's minds with MBTA community, and no matter what people tried to say, they just were convinced that this was, well, then somebody else got up and said it was 40B. And it's like, what the heck is going on here? Like, are we speaking the same language? Because it's got nothing to do with anything.
I don't know where that came from.
Yeah.
Because it's like, yeah, $955, and that's all it is for us to find out. It's short money for us to know what is that land worth to us, like we're doing at 01 West Washington. Same idea, it's just we're getting money from them so that we know what we own and what we can do with it, if anything,
For $955.
for $955.
Yeah. Of
I mean-
CPC money,
Exactly.
yeah.
And if we didn't get that, then we would spend a lot more money to just try and find out, hey, what value does that have for the Hanson Housing Authority?
Well, now, going into meetings, I don't know why I continue to do this, because I am always wrong. I always say to myself going into town meeting, I wonder what the lightning rod issue is gonna be. You know what, it's probably gonna, never, ever would I have thought a little $955 article was gonna be it, but, that's the beauty of democracy.
Yep.
Speaking of which, so when will our next meeting be? In November, what's everybody's availability? We obviously want to avoid Thanksgiving evening. Should be a Wednesday.
20, or
I will be a 20th.
You'll be away the 20th, okay. You going someplace good?
On a golf trip, so yeah.
Oh, that sounds fun.
Maybe the 13th.
So, okay,
so the 23rd is Thanksgiving, right?
No, 28.
28.
Thanksgiving this year.
yeah, 28.
So you
We're
have,
in 2023.
13.
Oh,
So yeah,
2023.
so yeah,
We did the same thing last meeting.
Yeah.
We got
so basically the 13th is probably the best.
13.
13th?
Yeah, that seems, will that work for you guys?
What was it, 13?
13?
13th, it's a Wednesday.
Yeah, that's good.
Looks
Six.
like this.
6 p.m.
Okay, yep. All right, perfect.
Okay,
November 13th,
6 o'clock?
6
yeah,
o'clock.
6 o'clock. Does that work, or do people want to do it a little later or earlier? Huh? Do you guys want to do it a little earlier, or can you do earlier?
I
or no?
can do earlier. Football season will be over on the 10th, no matter what.
Okay, so do we want to try for 5 instead?
Sure.
That's fine.
That way you
Yeah,
guys don't have
yeah.
to stay as late? Okay,
Heck yeah.
okay.
Uh,
Okay, great. All right, so with that then, I will entertain a motion to adjourn. All in favor?
Aye.
All right, great.